When I look at these numbers, I find it interesting that across the board, we have majorities of Americans feeling that masks should be made mandatory in some capacity, in some type of public space. That goes for people of all age groups, men and women, party ID. Though that's where there is one difference here. This is where we start to see perhaps views on civil liberties versus government regulation come into play. Now, to be clear, you do have about half of Republicans saying that masks should be mandatory in some capacity, in some type of public space. However, there are some big partisan gaps between Republicans and Democrats on this issue. For example, Republicans are more than twice as likely as Democrats to say that masks should be recommended, but not mandatory. And on the flip side, a strong majority of Democrats feel that masks should be mandatory in all public spaces. So what I'm seeing in this polling is that most Americans right now feel that masks are an essential part of keeping the public safe, and that they're okay with mandatory requirements to wear them in public. However, as we reopen, I think we're going to start seeing questions of enforcement for one, and then also some issues of social pressure. And masks are perhaps the best example of that because they are one of the most visible signs of what people are doing or aren't doing to keep themselves safe, right? For example, in our recent Ipsos Axios coronavirus index, we see that 8 in 10 Americans say that they're wearing a mask when they go out, including half saying that they're wearing a mask at all times. But we also asked people what they see others doing, and less than 1 in 5 say that they see other people wearing a mask in public at all times. So as we start to see more states reopen, as we start to kind of look to the next phase of the virus and reopening the country, I think there does kind of become this question of sort of how do we enforce these things? Now, again, what we know from this poll is that most Americans do want to see enforcement. They want to see mandatory requirements of wearing masks in public spaces, either in all public spaces or in indoor public spaces. So there is public opinion to back up some level of enforcement.
This is like a real cultural flashpoint, to mask or not to mask. And the only thing I think is really important to keep in mind is that, you mask up really for somebody else. It's not about you all the time. In fact, it's really about people around you that you could be exposing. And so, masking is just, again, we're going to have to figure it out. And then, the final part is that it has to ultimately be part of culture. And so I think that's the part we're kind of missing right now. The question isn't so much how do you force these things down people's throat. I think it's a question about how do you make sure that different parts of the country, different folks begin to own it as their own story. Why you mask might be very different for one group than another. It could be in honor of somebody. It could be to protect somebody. And so we don't need to mask up for the same reasons, or distance or have hygiene for the same reasons, but they have to resonate with us. And that's something that we're gonna have to just figure out over time. And you've got to be able to trust the American people to get there. And I think we will.